Hello and welcome to Tech Trends. I'm Olayemi Oshidende, and here's what we have on the program this week. Universal Service Provision Fund under the Nigerian Communications Commission launches USPF Impact Alliance to accelerate digital inclusion. Also on the program, Co-Creation Hub kicks off the third cohort of the Mastercard Foundation EdTech Fellowship. And then later, James Sichera, co-founder of Afric.info, will be talking about how emerging techs can help solve some of the most pressing challenges in Africa. We'll give you more in just a moment. Do stay with us. This is Tech Trends, and I'm Olayemi Oshidende.
The purest case of an intelligence explosion would be an artificial intelligence rewriting its own source code. The key idea is that if you can improve intelligence even a little, the process accelerates. At a tipping point, like trying to balance a pen on one end, as soon as it tilts even a little, it quickly falls the rest of the way.
The push for digital inclusion in Nigeria has taken a major step forward as the Universal Service Provision Fund under the Nigerian Communications Commission has officially launched the USPF Impact Alliance. The new coalition brings together private sector players to co-create solutions that bridge the digital divide, particularly in Nigeria's underserved and unserved communities. Here's more.
The University of Lagos, located in Akoka, famously known as the University of First Choice and the nation's pride, is the pioneer institution selected for the pilot phase of the federal government's Fibre-To-Hostel connectivity initiative.
You may be seated, please. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
This event, themed Bandwidth that Builds Bright Minds, Connecting Students, Empowering Futures, is to officially launch the service, which aims to deliver high-speed fiber optic internet with an average speed of between 50 to 100 Mbps to student hostels.
Of Communication, Innovation and Digital Economy, Dr. Bosun Tijani for the
Unveiled by the Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, Dr. Bosun Tijani, the initiative will provide each hostel with dedicated fiber links, secured Wi-Fi and continuous performance monitoring to ensure consistent service delivery.
This Fibre-To-Hostel initiative complements several critical elements of our ministry's blueprints, which includes providing internet connectivity through Project 774 to all local government secretariats in the country. We must recognize that broadband is an essential part or essential tool to the development of the nation, similar to what you find in electricity or clean water. Broadband powers academic research and collaboration. It also powers access to digital learning platforms, it powers access to and support to startups and online businesses, and also powers the participation of all of our people in a borderless digital economy. And it must be made available to people who need it the most, of course, our students. The Fibre-To-Hostel project is one of the initiatives of the National Broadband Alliance for Nigeria, which is our ministry's demand-side broadband strategy to increase internet usage by directly connecting critical public institutions such as universities, hospitals, and government offices. All the hostels in these universities will now be connected to fiber. You may not know, when you say connectivity to fiber, it's extremely important. It's not the same as the connectivity you have on your phone or dongle. This is the quality of connectivity that you require as a student in 2025 to be able to thrive, but also realize your potentials.
The Vice Chancellor of Unilag, Professor Folashade Ogunshola, lauds the initiative while also highlighting the university's efforts in digital transformation.
The university has done quite a lot in terms of innovation and digitization. And we have made it our pride to say that most of our faculties are wired. Most of our We have developed hotspots around the university, but we know that we have not yet quite got to the students where they are most of the time, their hostels. And this was something we had thought would not happen for the next maybe 3 years or 4. And for the government to have put us at the center of this initiative, the Fibre-To-Hostel initiative, is something that we are extremely grateful for.
Unilag is the first of 8 universities selected for this project, with a long-term vision to scale the project nationwide. In this pilot phase, 4 hostels, Femi Gbajabiamila, Alkanemi, Honors and Erastus Akinbola, are already connected.
So the workforce that we actually need to power...
Following the launch at the university, the minister proceeds to unveil the Universal Service Provision Fund, USPF, Impact Alliance, another initiative to drive inclusive communication technologies in underserved and unserved communities across the country. The USPF Impact Alliance serves as a platform that unites public and private sector partners to accelerate digital inclusion. Through collaborative co-creation sessions, stakeholders will work together with the USPF to design, expand and sustain impactful educational connectivity projects.
You know, today there's literally nothing we can do without being connected. Whether you think of banking, education, trade, health, everything has to do with connectivity. But there are communities in our country that are either totally unserved or underserved. And this fund is the wisdom of the government to ensure that we can start to also bring them in. This is a fund that has been investing for many, many years. The workshop here today is to say the investment of the government, how do we make it go further by leveraging partnerships with organizations, foundations, civil society organizations, and private businesses that are also interested in bridging digital divides. So the series of events has been thorough review because the government is invested in, for instance, this one is focused on the education part of our community program. And we've invested in a lot of computer labs in so many schools. So the question is, how do we ensure that those labs, when we invest in them as government, that they stay sustainable over many, many years? Because there's no point investing in computer labs that only last for a year or 2 and not continue to serve the students. So we're bringing together, we've analyzed the project, we've been to a lot of the sites that we've invested in over the years to see the state of the laboratories, to understand from the teachers and the administrators whether these centers are serving the purpose that we intend for them to serve. And also, lastly, to understand whether the equipment are still useful for the learners or not. So this gathering is about presenting the findings to the partners, but also ensure that we can secure commitment from like-minded partners who want to work with government to make this work.
Since its inception in 2007, the USPF has funded over 2,500 education-focused projects nationwide, empowering teachers and learners alike and creating pathways for inclusive and future-ready education.
The Co-Creation Hub, in partnership with the Mastercard Foundation, has once again opened its doors to African-focused EdTech startups, offering them the opportunity to scale their innovative solutions that make learning more inclusive and accessible through tech. Now in its 3rd iteration, the EdTech Fellowship will provide the selected startups with the support, mentorship and resources they need over the coming months to drive real transformation in Africa's education sector.
It is the official kickoff of the 3rd cohort of the Mastercard Foundation EdTech Fellowship, hosted by the Co-Creation Hub. And this year, it's not just about innovation, it's about inclusion.
So we give you the education.
For the first time, 50% of the selected startups are led by women.
Completing stage 1 was now moving them to our key leads across different areas, within the organization, practice leads, leads of key, key support teams within the organization, now evaluating these innovators, again, with another specific kind of rubric, scoring rubric that really evaluates to see how innovative these solutions are and seeing if they're a good fit for the program. And after this, we have the top 40 go through the due diligence phase, and the top 40 that went through the rigorous due diligence phase, also went through interviews, and they were then presented to the investment committee, who then make decision on the final 12. So it was really quite rigorous, and I must really celebrate and commend these 12 innovators that made it as finalists on the third cohort of the program.
From almost 1,000 applications, just 12 startups were selected for this third edition, chosen through a rigorous screening and evaluation process.
I think the first one, in terms of what we envision for this new cohort, is that they're able to see improved products, right? That their products are able to adopt effective learning science strategies, and that it's leading to key learning outcomes. Because at the end of the day with EdTech is really nothing without the education, and it's only when they're able to unlock significant learning outcomes that would see the type of goals that we want to see in terms of empowering our young people with skills to transform the country. And so that's one significant goal that we have for them, and we're here to support them, of course. But over the past two cohorts, they've reached over 650,000 learners. And so we're looking to this cohort to do even more, reaching even more learners, reaching even more teachers, reaching even more schools, reaching even more institutions, and basically seeing widespread adoption and effective use of EdTech in Nigeria. And so that's really what we wish for them. It's two key things: that their solutions are delivering on improved learning outcomes, but then they are also scaling and reaching more people who need their solutions, whose lives will be transformed, who will build skills by virtue of engaging with their tools.
Over the last couple of years, we've worked and placed competent talent across different organizations, from your Iya Basira having an admin assistant who is competent at what she's doing, to a business analyst working in any of the big fours. And with this opportunity, we want to scale this. We want an average graduate and an average youth to be competent, not just by certificates and online training, but you can actually do the work while on the job. And that's all we're doing this. Obviously, we're very happy and excited with the collaborations, the opportunity, the funding particularly, and we hope that we're pushing out to make Nigeria, Africa, a competent republic.
The aim of the fellowship is to empower EdTech startups building tools that enhance learning outcomes and expand access to quality, equitable education for Africa's next generation.
We provide quality basic education to learners in out-of-school areas, conflict-affected areas, using what a proprietary solution we call the Mavis Talking Box, and then also supporting learning facilitators to help them to make sure these children are learning in the language of their immediate environment.
Cloudnut is a school management and learning management system that is transforming how education is delivered across Africa. So we are really excited to be part of the Mastercard Foundation EdTech Fellowship 2025, and we are looking forward to opportunity for growth, for expansion, for learning, for impact.
Over the next 6 months, these founders will receive hands-on support from expert mentorship to business advisory sessions, all designed to help them scale, sharpen their ideas, and deepen their impact.
Did you know the first photo took 8 hours to expose? Taking a picture today is effortless. Just pull out your phone and tap a button. But photography has come a long way since its early days, when capturing a single image involved bulky cameras, metal or glass plates, and exposure times that stretched for hours. The photography, widely regarded as the first in history, is titled View from the Window at Le Gras, taken by Nisforé Niepce. A grainy image of French landscape captured on a metal plate is believed to be the world's earliest surviving photograph, dating back to 1826 or 1827. Due to the limitations of early photographic technology, the exposure for this image took an astonishing 8 hours. This long exposure time is also why people rarely smiled in old photographs. They had to remain perfectly still for extended periods, making smiling impractical.
From From artificial intelligence to blockchain and even decentralized finance, emerging technologies are no longer buzzwords. They are tools that, if harnessed correctly, could help Africa solve some of its biggest challenges, whether it's access to healthcare, education, or inclusive economic opportunities. But the question is, how do we move from potential to progress? And how do we ensure that these tools are shaped by African realities, African innovation, and even African leadership? Joining me on the program this week is someone right at the heart of this conversation, James Sichera, co-founder of Fibre-To-Hostel. Let's dive in. Thank you so much, James Sichera, co-founder of Fibre-To-Hostel, for joining us on Tech Trends. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Olemi. It's great to be here.
Now, James, Africa is at a turning point in its digital journey, and there's a lot of talk about it, taking charge of its own future. From where you sit, what do you think needs to be in place for that to happen? Are we talking about better skills, stronger infrastructure, or even smarter policies?
Thanks, Olemi. Well, we're living in probably the greatest opportunity in the last century for Africa to close its development gap. And AI provides that opportunity. And so the key things that we need to do and do with a matter of urgency are really three things. One, we need to look at compute, our data center infrastructure and the surrounding supporting infrastructure for that. We need to look at not just centralized data centers, but also computing that is at the edge that can be used in remote places, in farms. Secondly, talent. We need the very best Africans, the very best minds that we have on the continent working together. This also includes those that are in diaspora, but also collaborating with some of the best minds generally across the world. There's implications as well for our education system. We need to be embedding AI into every level of education from grade 0 right through to tertiary level. And lastly, but actually probably most importantly, we need the power because without clean energy to actually drive this revolution, then we can't do any of the other things.
Now, James, let's assume that those foundations you've mentioned are in place. Technologies like artificial intelligence, which is often mentioned as a game changer, become real tools for change. What does that now mean for Africa? I mean, how do you see AI helping solve some of the continent's biggest challenges?
Well, I think AI is more than just a game changer. COVID taught the continent a really harsh lesson. When push comes to shove, you're on your own. And so what we need to do is to build our capabilities here using this new technology so we are able to create cures that we derive from our ecology that can address not only ailments here, but ailments from around the world. But another really important area is food sovereignty. And feeding the nation is usually most countries' biggest bill, and quite often the source of a lot of the debt that we see across the continent from a national perspective. So us being able to yield more from the same amount of land that we have and doing it in a way that's ecologically responsible is something that AI can help us do and accelerate. As I mentioned, education needs to change completely because you now have a situation where all of the world's knowledge is available in an instant. That's got implications for absolutely everything, including defense. So it's more than a game changer. It's actually an existential priority.
Now, and building on what you just said, and onto the fourth industrial revolution, there's this idea that Africa has the chance to leapfrog our data systems without necessarily having to follow the traditional path. Do you really believe that's possible? And how can technologies like AI and even blockchain help us do that?
Oh, categorically. In fact, when you look at the initial early AI arms race or generative AI arms race, it was basically an arms race at all costs. And so you had very energy hungry, very water hungry data centers doing the processing. And there's talk as well about the use of untested means of powering these systems, just so that we can get further ahead quicker. But I think coming from behind, it gives you the opportunity to do it better. We can do it more ecologically, using less power, using less water, but doing it in a way that is also more useful. So I don't think we need to aim to have the most powerful AI in the world. We just need to have the most useful.
All right. Well, James, let's talk about something you have experience in, which is using AI and blockchain to open up access to funding for development projects. Can you tell us briefly, how that works and why an approach like that could be a game changer for financing in Africa?
Well, I think if one speaks to most global investors, when they look at Africa, what they see is risk. And I think the potential for de-risking projects in Africa, and particularly projects that involve the private sector and entrepreneurs, with blockchain and AI is absolutely transformational. You provide the opportunity for fractional contributions to what can actually be very large projects. You also provide the opportunity for a decentralized approach where multiple people from anywhere in the world can actually come together and make something big happen. So one of the key tenets of blockchain technology, for example, is transparency and everybody being able to see how funds have been funneled. So I think there's a real opportunity for transformational transparency, essentially, in terms of being able to fund projects, but also innovation in terms of how transactions are structured.
I'm talking about transparency that you just mentioned. One of the challenges with digital finance in Africa is trust. Many people are still wary, especially at the grassroots. Now, in your experience, what does it take to build a transparent and inclusive financial systems that everyday people and communities can really believe in?
Well, I think it starts with actually building together from the ground up, and not necessarily coming with a solution that is imposed from the top down. So, for example, with for Africa Day, we're releasing a voting platform that will enable Africans all around the world and also people that want to see progress in Africa to vote on some of the most important renewable energy projects in Africa. But a key difference here, and this is where the technology comes in, is that the people that are closest to it, so people, for example, within 10 kilometers of a project, they actually get an extra weighted vote. They actually get 3 times the voting power, so that local communities on the ground have a genuine say in what's going on around them. So they've got to be part of that picture, and right from the beginning, and not at the end when infrastructure is already going up.
Well, even though the road, to that is still unfolding, one thing is clear, and that's the fact that the tools to build a more inclusive digital future, are already here, and it's up to us to use them for our development. But James, as we look ahead with all of these tools, I mean, AI, machine learning, IoT, blockchain, all these tools are now at our fingertips. What excites you, the most about where Africa is heading with them?
I think Africa can approach these technologies in its own unique way. So, for example, right now you've got less than 0.1% of African languages that are on the internet, and so there's a huge opportunity to actually involve more people in creating solutions. First of all, from an African perspective, but from a global perspective. Not having those languages available actually deprives the rest of the world of an incredible reservoir of indigenous knowledge from many different cultures. So I'm very excited about the application of language and culture and having a much bigger say in terms of the development of the fourth industrial revolution and AI.
Well, thank you so much, James Sichera, co-founder of Afric.info, for sharing your insights with us on Tech Trends.
Thank you, Alim.
That's all for this week on Tech Trends. I hope you enjoyed the episode and picked up something new along the way. Remember, Tech Trends is here to keep you updated on insights, trends, and developments happening in the tech space. Also, don't forget, you can catch all our episodes on the channel's TV YouTube account. Make sure to watch, share, and like your favorite editions. Until I come your way again, I'm Olayemi Oshidende, and I'll see you next time.